Arken-9 Academy always hummed with controlled pressure. Its corridors carried a low metallic resonance, a reminder that the orbital station never slept. Every door, every panel, every junction point had a purpose. No wasted space. No wasted motion. Cadet Kaia Draven understood that better than most. She walked into the gravity dynamics hall with her usual stillness. Her steps were measured, each one placed with quiet precision. No fidgeting. No scanning for approval. Only the soft inhale that preceded a day of equations she already knew the answers to. She slipped into her seat at the center of the tiered chamber, the only human in a class of 26. The room glowed with pale blue arcs from the class constant gravity core mounted behind a thick transparent field. The core pulsed with slow, steady light, heartbeats of a system designed to bend space with mathematical obedience. Around it, students spoke in excited fragments, their voices rising like static before a storm. Bral-Xion's laughter cut through the air the moment Kaia set her notebook on the desk. Well. The human ornament returns. His Reptor accent carried a sharp hiss on every syllable. Maybe today she'll blink. Kaia didn't look at him. She traced the edge of her desk with a finger and focused on the variable sequence glowing on her holopad. Gravity drift equations, mass shear distribution, lateral force predictions. Work she enjoyed more than social noise. A nearby student leaned back in his chair. Bral, she won't respond. You know she doesn't. That's the game, Bral-Xion replied. Break the silent one. Kaia shifted her page slightly to avoid the shadow his tall frame cast over her desk, but said nothing. Professor Thurn stepped onto the platform with an authoritative sweep of his long coat. His 4 eyes blinked independently as he surveyed the class. Today's objective: predict the core's response to microload deviations. You'll calculate, simulate, and then manually adjust the stabilizer in your assigned pods. Bral-Xion murmured, try not to faint, human. Kaia inhaled once, calm and steady. Your calculations failed last week, she said quietly. Several students paused. Bral-Xion's head snapped in her direction. The sparks of challenge lit his reptilian gaze, but she had already returned to her formulas. Thurn activated the wall display, projecting a swirling map of gravitational threads. These lines represent the core's default balance. One incorrect adjustment and the room becomes a centrifuge. I expect precision from every cadet here. He turned toward Kaia. Cadet Draven. Bored. She rose without hurry and approached the vertical holoslab. Equations scrolled beside her hand as she input the predicted shift sequences. Each symbol appeared with clean certainty. Her fingers glided across the surface with faint clicks, never pausing to reconsider. Students whispered. She's too fast. Is she memorizing? No, she's calculating in real time. Thurn inspected her work. Correct. He stepped aside. Continue. Kaia finished the last vector string, then faced the room. Bral-Xion smirked openly now, leaning back as if he owned the view. You think accuracy makes you special, he said. Kaia met his eyes for the first time. Her expression didn't change. No. The word held no defiance, but it quieted the room more effectively than a shout. She returned to her seat while Bral-Xion's nostrils flared in irritation. Thurn clapped once. Simulation pods. Group by column. The chamber shifted into practical mode. Sections of the floor rotated, revealing circular control nests. Kaia stepped into her assigned pod, its curved interface sliding to her presence. She slipped on the analysis gloves, flexing her fingers to test their response. Something felt off. The left glove pulsed with a faint delay in feedback, barely a fraction of a second, but enough to disrupt a stabilizer command during a real procedure. Kaia reset the calibration. The glitch repeated. She lifted her gaze. Across the room, Bral-Xion's shoulders shook in a quiet, satisfied laugh. Kaia didn't confront him. She simply opened the diagnostic stream, tracing the input pattern. The glove's feedback module had been tampered with, nothing too obvious, but enough to sabotage fine-tuned control. A petty trick for someone who prided himself on physical prowess. Thurn's voice boomed, "Begin initial sequence." Students engaged their pods. The core behind the reinforcement field glowed brighter, its rings beginning to rotate. Kaia breathed slowly. She could compensate manually as long as she accounted for the delay. Not ideal, but possible. Her simulation screen displayed the first challenge: controlled deformation of gravity wells. Her fingers moved with graceful precision, adjusting values faster than the system's predicted need. Every motion countered the glove's delay without visible frustration. The chamber dimmed as the core increased its output. Gravity pressed slightly downward, a training mode designed to mimic unstable zones. Students grunted as they fought the shift. Bral-Xin scoffed loudly. "Little human shaking yet?" Kaia didn't lift her head. "No." He slammed his stabilizer lever harder than necessary, sending a ripple of uneven force across the chamber. Thurn snapped toward him. "Cadet, moderate your inputs." Bral-Xin sneered. Trying to teach her something. Kaia continued her work. Her readings stabilized despite the interference. She shifted her palm, entering corrections with fluid ease. Her pod pulsed green, precision verified. Voices rose again. "She beat the sequence already? That took me 3 tries last term. How does she do that silently?" Kaia removed her gloves, inspecting the subtle scorch mark on the left module. Someone had overloaded it intentionally. She set it down gently. As the room shifted to normal gravity, Thurn reviewed the results. "Draven is first." "Bral-Xin, you've destabilized your pod twice." Bral-Xin snarled, "The human got lucky." Kaia spoke without turning. "Luck doesn't produce accuracy." The air thickened. Even Thurn watched the exchange. Bral-Xin stalked closer, leaning over her desk. "Say that again." Kaia lifted her eyes. "You want to hear it?" "I don't need to repeat it." Thurn interjected, "Enough. Return to your columns." Bral-Xin stepped back, but his stare promised trouble. As the class prepared for the final round of adjustments, the core dimmed unexpectedly. A thin red line pulsed across its containment shield, barely noticeable, but Kaia caught it. An early sign of load imbalance. She leaned toward Thurn. "Sir, the core's variance threshold rose by 0.02. Thurn checked his tablet. "I'm not reading it." "It flashed," Kaia said. "Near the upper ring." Bral-Xin snorted. "She's imagining things." Kaia continued calmly, "Variance doesn't appear without cause. Someone modified a limit." A ripple of concern spread among the students. Thurn approached the core field. The red flicker returned, longer this time. He frowned. "Class ends here. Everyone out while I run a diagnostic." Students dispersed in murmurs. Kaia moved toward the door, her steps as quiet as when she entered. Bral-Xin lingered behind her, whispering low. "You watch too much. Next time, watch less." Kaia stopped. "Next time, 'cause less." He bared his teeth but said nothing further. As she walked into the corridor, the hum of the station shifted, lower, disturbed, almost questioning. Kaia felt the pulse of the core through the floor, faint but off rhythm. Something had been altered. And tomorrow's class would reveal exactly who tampered with it, and why. Kaia didn't sleep deeply the way other cadets did. On Arken-9, rest came in light cycles, brief windows where the station quieted its mechanical breathing and dimmed to amber night. She dozed enough to recover, but her mind liked motion even when her body didn't. She woke before the first bell, gloves already disassembled on her desk, feedback module exposed like a heart laid open for surgery. The Academy rarely issued human-sized equipment, so defects hit harder. There were no backups. Last night's logs confirmed a bypass in the load governor of the gravity core. Someone had lifted the classroom's deformation ceiling by a small but reckless margin. Not enough to trigger automatic lockdown, but enough to eventually twist the field into something dangerous. The perfect size for Bral-Xin's brand of careless amusement. She packed the gloves into her satchel. The hallways outside were nearly empty, cleaned overnight by Arken drones that scuttled like silent silver beetles. A vendor stall was opening at the junction, a breakfast kiosk run by a small octopoid species stirring nutrient tanks and steaming alloy mugs. "What'll it be, Cadet?" the vendor asked. Kaia glanced at the menu. Salt-roasted protein cube. Low heat. No glaze. The vendor froze one tentacle dramatically. Blunt. Efficient. "You're engineering stock, aren't you?" "I study stars that hit back," Kaia replied, taking the cube without elaboration. 10 minutes later she entered the pod bay behind the gravity hall, a chamber of personal calibration booths used to sync simulation gear to each operator's nervous system. The booths were shaped like smooth vertical capsules, crimson lights flickering faint on proximity sensors. She slid into booth 12 and locked her gloves into the interface dock. A sharp chime signaled authentication. Feedback delay detected, 0.004 seconds. The booth AI announced it literally, no emotion. Kaia touched the console. Correction possible. If phase aligned to mean load, manually stabilized to third derivative shear. The AI processed her statement in silence. Governor cap status, disabled at source. She frowned, not at the gloves, but at the larger implication. The sabotage wasn't about her pride. Bral-Xin wanted spectacle, but someone smarter had helped him craft the vulnerability into the system itself. A primitive prank was one thing. A precision bypass carried fingerprints of intent. The crimson lights of the pod bay glimmered along her cheekbones as the booth sealed and began phase sync. Her breathing slowed to match its rhythm. Her eyes tracked the numbers cascading in the internal HUD, force quantization, mass flux, tilt tolerances. A metric waterfall revealing the system's deepest vulnerabilities. The capsule hissed open 90 seconds later. She stepped out, gloves corrected, and brushed crumbs from her uniform sleeve. No triumphant posture, just readiness. Someone cleared their throat. "Morning, Kaia," said Cadet Lasari, a planktonoid girl whose species floated faintly when gravity fluctuated, always seeming half ethereal. "You're early." "You too," Kaia said. Lasari measured distance, not eye level. When speaking, her species avoided direct confrontation and less bonding. "You working on the gloves?" "Heard Bay 3 ran a governor check last night." Kaia paused, considering. Someone disabled a cap in classroom strain tolerance. Same signature source altered the stabilization load. Lasari's bioluminescent freckles dimmed in shock. "Bral-Xin?" He touched the governor line. But he didn't write a precision bypass. Lasari drifted slightly closer, still a respectful gap. "So we're talking coordinated." Kaia nodded. She finally felt the weight of this place. Arken-9 rewarded spectacle but punished engineering incompetence. Tampering with critical fields could get a cadet voided from the academy entirely. Bay 3, the Reptor cluster dormitories, came alive like a jungle den. She entered without invitation. Bral-Xin was already awake, tail thrashing irritably as he tightened his kinetic harness. He had expected confrontation. He fantasized provocation. Kaia didn't give him narrative. She gave him numbers. "You overloaded glove feedback at 0300. Calibration source caught source access signature. System cap disabled by same node link, external, not kiosk level," she said. Bral-Xin froze, vertical slit pupils narrowing. "You accusing me of thinking above my pay grade?" "Your pay grade is irrelevant." "Tampering scale is not," Kaia said, setting the gloves on the communal table. They clanked softly, repaired but marked. Bay Captain Gruthel, Reptor Dorm Oversight Officer, snapped alert, boots striking hard. "Explain." Bral-Xin grinned. "She's dramatic." Kaia tapped the glove's left feedback scorch mark. "Governor access trace." Room variance predicted collapse in 41 minutes at former load. Gruthel grabbed the gloves and docked them into his inspection slab. Data lit his face emerald as the disambiguation logs confirmed her accuracy. You lifted cap tolerances on classroom core, risking mass centrifuge, he said, tone grave now. Bral-Xin hissed defensively. Just wanted a reaction. That reaction could have killed floating species, Lasari whispered, angry now in soft glow. Another Reptor cadet stepped forward, Cadet Mortrun. Bral, you're arrogant, but you're not coordinated. Someone spoon-fed you precision access, didn't they? Kaia watched the log cascade without commentary. Mortrun was right, this was a source breach, not a force stunt. Bral-Xin shrugged. Maybe someone smarter noticed Decoration Girl corrects gravity shifts faster seated. Kaia looked directly at him again, only the second time she'd done it. If someone helped you, give the name. Scale matters now. Bay Captain leaned in closer than kiosk rules advised. Who gave you cap lift access? No hierarchy games. Direct answer. Bral-Xin's jaw tightened. For the first time in years, he looked smaller than his posture implied. Cadet Overshar, he said finally. 3rd year. Systems discipline class. Kaia memorized the implication. Overshar didn't want a reaction. He wanted gravitational inevitability. Later, in Corridor 3B. Kaia walked beside Lasari toward class. The station carried a slight pressure tilt, nothing unstable, but enough to remind floating species they were alive. Dialogue drifted between them like tension lines of a system reaching strain. Lasari, you really saw collapse timing from a glove delay? Kaia, delay was a symptom. Load governor off was a cause. Lasari, you scare hierarchy addicts. Kaia, fear is inefficient. Awareness is not. Lasari, still. Thanks for not letting the room become a centrifuge. Kaia, Rule 7 of systems, if you break governors, you answer to consequences, not spectators. Lasari smiled in drifting fluorescence. One day those consequences might answer louder than you speak. Kaia kept walking. Loudness is situational. Physics is not. The gravity dynamics hall was rebuilt into full test mode. Desks bolted. Observation cameras shielded. The Varillian system sun had risen over Arken-9's hull, a hard white glare that bounced through the reinforcement glass like truth through a lens. Class began, but the social hierarchy had already fractured. The students didn't look at Kaia like an ornament anymore. They looked at her like a variable they couldn't yet model, calm, unflustered, mathematically inevitable. Professor Thurn entered with a long swipe of his access staff, robes whispering over a floor now locked into non-rotational mode. Behind him, the stabilized class constant gravity core pulsed with a steady blue, house behind crystalline plating that resisted strain beyond organic durability. The arc-etched casing reflected like frozen water around it. Yesterday's readings threatened lateral collapse, Thurn began, not wasting a syllable. The investigation found a load cap disabled at source. Sabotage. Not speculation. He turned his quad-pupil gaze across the class. Whoever did it, speak. Silence answered first, not the tense silence of audience performance, but the cold one produced when liability weighed heavier than pride. Cadet Overshar stepped forward from the upper tier. Tall, avian-limbed, cerulean robes trimmed with systems rank emblems. The 3rd-year cadet whose discipline was engineering and consequence alike. I modified the cap, he said. But the intent was not collapse. It was a load-through pressure demonstration. A scoff erupted from Bral-Xin's tier. Thurn silenced him with a glance. Thurn, explain the axis of your demonstration. Overshar didn't blink away. He respected evidence more than theater. 2nd-year cadet Bral-Xin had unsanctioned desire for attention. He implied humans lacked adaptive tolerance. I provided a controlled cap lift, inside safety envelope for 90 minutes, not the 40 Draven predicted from glove symptoms. The demonstration was to prove a species wasn't decoration by tolerating what others assumed they could not. Every sentence cut clean, like vector lines trimmed by engineering possibility. Then all eyes turned to Kaia. Kaia didn't stand at attention dramatically. She stood the way she always did, weight balanced, motion conserved. Your cap envelope was mathematically safe, she said. Your student envelope was socially unstable. A ripple of astonishment. Even clinical species respected a diagnosis spoken without malice. Student 1, she talks. Student 2, no. She corrects. Overshar allowed a thin smile. You're not wrong. But you speak as if confrontation magnifies the point. Kaia, confrontation magnifies ego. Miscalculation magnifies disaster. Thurn stepped between them, robes whispering metallic silk against station air. Draven, your response yesterday prevented divergence escalation. Overshar, your cap lift intent is secondary to station safety. Bral-Xin, your motive was personal, not controlled. Bral-Xin snarled. It was a prank, Professor. Thurn's staff struck the floor once. The tremor was auditory authority, not gravitational. The result of governors removed is not a prank. It's a physics hazard. He turned his gaze back to Overshar. Report if Draven's glove feedback anomaly was part of your demonstration. Overshar's expression sharpened, not angry, but pinpoint responsive to truth. No. That was Bral-Xin attempting to escalate her motion. Thurn issued discipline capsules instantly, Overshar, review assigned. Bral-Xin, probation inserted. But Kaia received none, and that absence said more than any discipline capsule could. Not exemption through favoritism, but exemption through necessity, because the system had learned she didn't break governors. She recalibrated them. The live test. The next lab sequence began without relocation theatrics. Thurn, load governor strain test. Manual control permitted. Safety override disabled. Gravity stress incremental through 8 tiers. Failure at tier 6 results in station airlock simulation. Begin. The core flared brighter as students docked stabilization harnesses and gloves into their pods. Gravity rose incrementally like tightening strings across dimensions, 0.3 g. 0.7 g. 1.2 g, pressing, rising, demanding motion from bodies that feared variables more than evidence. Kaia docked her gloves, freshly corrected, feedback module no longer delayed. She matched the load quantization, entering corrections without haste. No bravado. Just numerical inevitability. Second tier, Mort run already floating slightly. Gloves overheating. Fourth tier, Lasari compensating gently, sweat beads glowing bioluminescent blue on her cheek. By tier 6, half the class grunted under pressure heavier than their planets ever churned out naturally. Bral-Xin, sweating profusely, claws trembling, failing load alignment. Kaia, still entering corrections, you're pulling your lever by panic, not prediction. Bral-Xin, easy for you to say seated. Kaia, I stood because the core needed me. You stand because you need to shout at numbers. Mort Run choked out a laugh despite the pressure, floating faint inches. She's terrifying. Lasari whispered, but with a new respect glow, she's inevitable. Core alignment diverges. The gravity core emitted a faint microshear an incoming cadet should never be able to feel. Transparent field flickered red once, a technical pulse hint rather than failure. Thurn stared at the readings. Core quantization drift detected. Kaia didn't wait for camera zoom, audio theater, or rank spectacle. She slid her fingers into direct manual control, gloves humming with corrected feedback. Desk hardware groaned. Bolts quivered. A cup of steaming nutrient alloy slid sideways, but not enough to fly. Not yet. Thurn, Draven, report your action plane. Kaia, core governor axis had tilt deviation from glove overload stunt. Bypass code was safe until input moderation fail. I'm entering manual third derivative alignment to bypass the bypass. Student 2, by all sons. Student 1, she's fixing the thing that was supposed to fix the thing that was supposed to break her. Core shatters, but nobody is hurt. Bral-Xin's prank pressure hit the core at the upper distortion ring. He had expected Kaia to move. Yell. Snap. Unleash. Instead, Kaia did the opposite of spectacle. She realigned mass flow tolerances so perfectly that the stress Bral-Xin introduced had nowhere left to go except back into the source he tried to manipulate. The containment plating of the CCGC spider cracked instantly, not exploding violently, not centrifuging, not melodramatic, just clean fracture, mathematical redirection complete. Shards hung in stasis for 1.3 seconds, then dropped harmlessly as the containment field kicked emergency catch, a design it always possessed but never expected Kaia to be the trigger for. Gasps erupted. Thurn inspected the field visually, intact. No chairs lifted. No species floating uncontrollably. No bolt sheared from desks. Thurn, class constant core contained. Pod constant core test concluded. Student Mort Run exhaled hard. She didn't even step forward. Lissari, glowing with awe spotlit like nebula fragments, she beat 8 tiers of gravity. With one finger. Professionally terrifying. Kaia finally removed the gloves gently. Turned once toward Bral-Xin, whose eyes were now filled with smallness rather than prestige. Kaia, lesson complete. Governor stays where species don't play with caps. Bral-Xin whispered as gravity returned to default weight. I should have watched less. Kaia gathered her satchel. You should have caused less. She walked out, station humming behind her with unchanged gravity, but the classroom's massive assumptions had permanently shifted. The quietest cadet had altered the loudest belief: humans were not decoration here. They were inevitability wrapped in calm motion. The day after a core fracture was supposed to feel procedural: repairs, hearings, system audits. Arken-9 didn't indulge emotional aftermaths. It cataloged actions, measured damage, and issued revisions to prevent future deviation. That illusion of bureaucratic calm lasted exactly 8 minutes. When the shattered training core was finally removed from the hall, the Academy installed a temporary stabilizer unit, the interim Sherlock Matrix. It glowed a softer teal than the original reactor, as if the station itself was trying not to look embarrassed. Kaia Draven was summoned to the disciplinary atrium, not as an accused party, but as a witness parameter. The room was circular, its roof a slow-moving collection of observation glyphs projected by Arken codices. Coalition school flags hovered in zero-friction suspension, not by gravity, but magnetics, the safer cousin of distortion physics. Cadets, staff officers, even data scribes gathered like audit vectors in orbit around the central dais where the professors of Arken-9 Academy convened for liability hearings. At the desk opposite Kaia stood the named party of the tampering, Cadet Overshar. To their left, under a probation marker pulsing warning yellow, was Bral-Xin. Thurn raised his staff to begin. Hearing Case 4 Sigma, Governor Bypass, Glove Overload, Unauthorized Tolerance Lift. Lissari, attending as Kaia's only allied bonding species, floated calmly near the rear, too calm for her species, which meant she was irritated in a politely glowing way. Overshar spoke first, wings half folded behind him. I lifted caps within a training envelope that would have remained dimensionally safe for at least 90 minutes. The glove overload was secondary interference. A personal escalation routine initiated by Bral-Xin, not me. Bral-Xin clicked his teeth, tail stiff. I didn't know the cap was that sensitive. It was a trick. Not sabotage. Kaia finally raised her head from her satchel. It became sabotage when the system had no governor left, she said, quiet, factual, unavoidable. Officer Jet Rancole, head oversight liaison, stepped forward and leaned slightly closer than Atrium Protocol recommended. Cadet Draven, clarify how you detected collapse at 41 minutes when Overshar's envelope read 90. Kaia opened her tablet and projected the logs. No color embellishment. No dramatic filter. Only raw causality. There were 3 symptoms you ignored, she explained. feedback lag above safe microcalibration threshold, rotational ring variance freeze, and thermal differential mismatch between gloves. The governor envelope read safe because the system wasn't compensating for human-sized interface tolerances. My gloves were. That's your 49-minute blind spot. The atrium murmured. Atrium murmurs were rare enough to qualify as official astonishment. Scribe Nina whispered to the scribe beside him, forgetting they were recording minutes. She thinks in cracks instead of reasons. Thurn tapped his console. You speak of gravity like it's litigation. Kaia's lips twitched. It was barely a twitch. It read like a gravitational anomaly because emotional twitches were rarer in humans trained to suppress motion than spikes in coalition cores. My planet taught me law through physics, she replied. Overshar seemed amused, but not mockingly. Only analytically. Fascinating. But are you saying the governor was irrelevant because the room couldn't accommodate your species' kinetics? No, Kaia said. I am saying your demonstration was correct, but your containment assumptions were incorrect. Being right isn't enough if your safety margin doesn't include the unexpected species. Bral-Xin whispered, she keeps doing that. Being obvious without yelling. Kaia didn't waste time chasing pride. She dissected cause. You reach for dominance, so you believe motion is power. That bias makes you miss still input adjustments. That's why you were floating and I wasn't. Even before the correction. Thurn concluded the argument. Verdict adjustments, Bral-Xin, interface training mandated immediately. Overshar, containment equation review and simulation governor retraining. Draven, unlocked from all revision markers on ground of corrective action necessity. Kaia blinked once. Atrium mic sensors catalogued it as a gesture of acknowledgement, not triumph. Lissari drifted closer after the verdict finalized. You know, Kaia, you don't need to carry the gloves anymore. Kaia slung her satchel over one shoulder. I carry them because systems break. Not because I want to stare at them. Lissari smiled faintly, never a formula repeat, always a new tone. You just redefined corrective inevitability inside an alien litigation chamber full of 4 sigma arguments. That's terrifying. Kaia started walking out through Atrium Exit 4. Terrifying is inefficient. Effective is enough. Lissari floated beside her. You're allowed metaphors off probation, Lissari teased. Kaia met her glow-freckled gaze. Metaphors consume processing time. Evidence does not. They both laughed lightly, but only for a second. Because even laughter had to be efficient in a school orbiting on interim Sherlock assumptions, capsule AIs, and codex flags that hovered magnetically safer now than gravity ever allowed. Behind them, the atrium logged the laughter without understanding it. And that meant the station still had lessons left to learn. The real aftershock wasn't a shattered core. It was the broken assumption that quiet input meant weak tolerance. The atrium processed that correction permanently, rewriting internal protocols across training governors for rare species, small booths, human-sized kinetics, and demonstrations where containment math had to include parameters beyond classroom ego. Kaia left the room intact, gravity unchanged, belief altered, and the Sherlock glow pulsing behind her like a system finally admitting what it had failed to simulate earlier. Unpredictability isn't dangerous. Unaccounted unpredictability is.